Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Darcy and Stacey. Let's get to the show.
Are you okay? What's been going on?
There's one thing that's come to the surface, being in quarantine with Georgie. I haven't said anything to anybody. Not even you guys. It just started to feel like I needed to talk about it with someone else other than Georgie. Because I need to understand it myself. He told me that he's still married. He's separated, going through a divorce.
All right. I thought she was going to say something awful. I think, sometimes have this simplistic understanding of what marriage means. There's legal marriage and then there's real marriage. We all understand that, right? There's you could be actually married, but not legally married. And you could be legally married and not in spirit actually married, right? With Ash and Avery on 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days, Ash, he was technically married, legally married to his wife, but both of them had agreed that they hadn't been romantic or involved in each other's life in the way that people are when they're married for 10 years. They had essentially broken up and they just never got around to filling out the paperwork, or it was hard to, move forward since they had a kid together. They didn't have any big reasons to do that. And so I hope all of us can understand that. Now, it does raise some questions. If Georgie was lying to Darcy about it, if Georgie still has Darcy, if Georgie still has romantic ties or some kind of overlap with his current, legal wife, then, it's something to talk about. But people, once you get past a certain age, you realize, romance gets messy after a while. There are a lot of situations like this. The older you get, the more likely you do have an ex-spouse, the more likely you do have these entanglements, if you will, and they're just a part of life. So I thought she was going to reveal something like, I don't know, I was so scared for what she was going to reveal. But okay, he's legally married, but they're separated, and he's in the process of getting a divorce. Now, Darcy can say for sure, if this is how she feels, I don't want to be involved with someone who isn't fully divorced yet. It's just a preference of mine. But to think of it like, well, he's still involved with her romantically or love-wise, or somehow that's a threat to my relationship, then, that's a little bit more questionable. Now, I think what Darcy might have run into in the past, and maybe what she's worried about with Georgie, is that he's saying he's separating, but he isn't actually separating. We've heard stories like that where people will say, oh, no, I'm definitely separating, but then years and years go by and they never actually leave their spouse because they never really intended to, or they didn't want to admit that to themselves or something. So I don't know. Let's continue watching.
In the beginning was great. We get to a point where we cannot stand each other. We have all the arguments and problems. We separate more than a year ago. And I applied for divorce before I meet with Darcy. And first time me and Darcy talk in Miami, being shared that. I mentioned that I was married, but we don't focus too much about this conversation because, first of all, we're in Miami, we're having fun.
Okay, interesting. That was a question I had. So I'll commend Georgie. He says that when they first met, he told her. He said, by the way, I'm still legally married, but I'm not with her anymore, and I'm going through a divorce. I just want to let you know that. That's highly commendable. We've certainly seen other people on the show hide lesser details than that, right? Or greater details, either direction. It's bad, right? And so, I'm not defending Georgie. I'm not saying he's an awesome guy. I'm just looking at these particular behaviors. The worry I have with Darcy is that she is going to see this as a threat, which it is kind of. It's a little bit of a worry, right? You're like, oh, should I be worried about this? What's going on? Can I really trust him? There's a little bit of concern there. Am I a rebound? What's going on? Those are normal concerns. But those are concerns really anyone should have whenever they're dating anybody. You should always be like, I have no idea if this is going to work. we're just going to have to see. And I think for Darcy, because she's so worried of abandonment and being lonely because of chronic loneliness and chronic abandonment throughout her life emotionally, I think she is just so desperate, as she has shown with Jesse and with Tom and now with Georgie, to meld with someone and to find her forever person, that anytime any data comes to her that opposes that notion that she's 100% safe, she either denies or minimizes or something, and she idealizes. Or when there's some indication of something that she can't really ignore, like this, then my worry is that she jumps to a conclusion of, here we go again, and gets upset and pushes him away, and then now he does move away from her, and the conflict begins and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they're a good couple, but what I would look for Darcy, if she was to remain differentiated and trying to get her needs met while being realistic about that, is to say, well, we just met, and technically we're kind of like on our 4th date at this point, so who knows what's going to happen. Yeah, he's still married, but he says that they're divorcing, and I'll trust him for now, but I don't know him. I don't know him at all. He could be lying he could have 5 wives for all I know. I barely know this guy. We just met. We're having a great time together. It seems like things are going well, but who knows? Let's look 3 months, 6 months. Ask me again in 2 years how this is going, and I'll tell you how things are going.
That was like drinking champagne. She don't pay attention too much. I was expecting, in the next 21 days to be done with this divorce, but everything is shut down, and because the court are closed, I'm not able to go to the hearing until the courts are open again. And I hope can be over very soon, so we can move forward for our relationship.
Yeah, it's one of the consequences of the pandemic is that you don't necessarily think about is not only was going to restaurants and bars and festivals, not only were those things canceled, but almost everything was canceled, including things like this of divorce proceedings, other kinds of legal proceedings. Medical procedures were postponed. I had a massive allergic reaction. I've never been allergic to anything in my life. I had a massive allergic reaction when I was at Mardi Gras. And I was immediately scheduled for a full screen of all the things that I might be allergic to, because I was just like, what happened there? I mean, I had to go to the hospital. It was scary. And I took some guesses to what I was allergic. What we thought it was crayfish or crawfish or crawdads, as we call it in the Northwest. I had this po' boy, crawdad po' boy. I immediately broke out in hives and went to the hospital. But I have had a lot of shellfish, including crayfish, throughout my life. In fact, a couple days before that, I had crawfish because I was in New Orleans, and that's what you do, and didn't have any kind of allergic reaction. So who knows what it was. So I had that whole procedure. I have yet to have it again. So I have no idea why I had to go to the hospital. I mean, it could have been anything. And it's like, well, I haven't had an allergic reaction in 6 months, so hopefully I'm in the clear. So there's all sorts of things that were postponed from the pandemic. Many of you can relate to that. It just put everything on hold.
When did you find out that he was married?
I don't believe he told me in Miami. I don't remember that, to be honest with you. There was drinks involved. When he told me from our apartment, he's still technically married. He reassured me this is not someone, that he wants to be married to.
All right. So interesting. She doesn't remember. She says, yeah, there were drinks involved, but, we don't really know the answer to that. He either did and she doesn't remember, or he thinks he did, or he is trying to lie about it a little bit. Who knows? But again, there's just no way to know. And there's no data to build an expectation of trust around because we just don't know him. We don't know him. Darcy doesn't know him. And so you just have to say, well, I don't know. I mean, you could be lying to me, but time will tell. Ask me again in 2 years. That's what I wish you would say is like, who knows? It's pandemic times. Ask me again in 2 years if we're a good couple or he's a good guy for me. At this point, I think he is, but who knows? There's some red flags, But I'm just going to move forward, and we'll see.
It didn't work out. It's just done in his mind, in his heart. Did you make that call? What they say?
Believe me, I want to get this done like, long time ago. But,
Yeah.
then the quarantine happened.
It's you. I feel like you have it in your head that this is just gonna be easy squeezy, boom, bam, done. And I fear that it's not.
The divorce never easy.
Okay, it's always good when you can identify your fear or your hurt. Those are almost always the primary emotions, if not always. So she just identified that. She's like, I'm afraid, blah, 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 blah. What I would like for her to do is go a little bit deeper and say what I'm guessing is something like, I'm afraid I can't trust you because of this. I'm afraid that you're never going to divorce her and you're going to go back with her. I'm afraid that you're the sort of person that rebounds and that you're a rebound person. I'm afraid you're going to reject me. I'm afraid that because of this, it somehow is a red flag that I'm supposed to pay attention to because all my friends tell me about red flags and I've been there before and I'm confused. I don't know what to do. And I'm afraid of my own judgment about being able to detect whether or not I can trust you or not. Those are probably the primary emotions that she's having, and that's okay. Expressing that is okay. What she's going to is, from that fear, speculation, is trying to solve that fear by grilling him and pressuring him and making him feel bad about himself. If we believe his story, which it sounds credible, there's no reason to believe he's a bad person. He met someone, they got married, it didn't work out, they were in the process of getting the divorce, which takes a long time, by the way, and the pandemic screwed everything up. And while he was in the process of getting divorced, he was dating. Nothing wrong with that. They were broken up, and it was just a matter of legal procedures that needed to wrap up the breakup of that relationship, or the legal part of the relationship, if you will. The spiritual part or the soul part of the relationship was over, and he met Darcy. And so it's just paperwork. I wish people would just think of it, it's just paperwork. Now, to Darcy, the problem is, I think, is that because she is so worried about abandonment and she rushes into things and idealizes things, which we've seen with Jesse and with Tom and now with Georgie, that she wants to get married now. She's basically expressed that to him. She wants to have his last name as her name. She wants to get married now. And the fact that he's legally married to someone and that legal part isn't wrapped up means they cannot technically get married at this point, which of course is not a good idea anyway. I don't think anyone would think that it's a good idea that these two start talking about marriage at this point, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with them getting married suddenly and then breaking up in a couple months, but you got to think about the kids, and it's just it's just a lot of mess that you don't need to go through. So why not just say, okay, we're having a great time together. Let's relax. I have to say this kind of freaks me out a little bit, but I'm still building trust with you. So let's continue talking about it. I might have questions. I might have upwelling of feelings that I might want to talk about. Maybe a couple days from now, an upwelling of feeling will happen, and I'll be like, so you're still married, but do you still have feelings for her? Some kind of paranoia there, and it's okay to bid for closeness or reassurance in that moment. He reassures. He seems like he's capable of that. Would say something like, nope, I'm into you. I broke up with her a long time ago. And really in my mind, I was done with her a year before that, but I kept giving it a try. She's definitely in the past. There's no possible way she's a threat. I'm not looking at anyone else. I'm just dating you. And I feel like things are going really great. So let's continue that. She upwelling of emotion, express, let him rise to the occasion. He rises to the occasion, repair, and that's what I'm looking for. So she's having an attitude that is pressuring him. Now, he seems to be handling it pretty well, but what I'm worried about is he's going to get triggered. Then he's going to come out with defenses. She's going to be like, there we go again. Absolute betrayal, when it was a little bit of tension that caused her to have anxiety. And rather than owning that anxiety, she transformed that into anger and control, blasted him. He gets triggered. He can't talk about his hurt. He escalates and blasts her. Now she has evidence like, there it is. Just what I thought. You're an a-hole. Now, I have faith. I don't know why, but I have faith. Let's continue watching.
So
No, trust me, I know that. And I had kids involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, shouldn't we try to talk to a lawyer and like see, maybe there's certain things they can do that you're not aware of? Because that's what the lawyer does. Georgie should have just gotten a lawyer. When you really want to get a divorce, that's what most people do. I don't know why you didn't get a lawyer.
I'm probably going to comment about all sorts of things without really knowing much about the situation, but I will say that in my community, there are plenty of people who get divorced without lawyers. In fact, if you can get divorced, then doing it without lawyers really saves you a lot of money. A lot of people will divorce amicably. Now, usually you have to hire some kind of legal professional, whether it's a legal assistant of some kind or a lawyer. You both hire the same lawyer, that kind of thing. When we both hire lawyers, it's usually because there is some kind of dispute of some kind, or you're predicting some kind of dispute. Now, you can do what we call collaborative divorce. Listen to all my episodes on collaborative divorce. A colleague of mine, Joe Schaub, is a lawyer and a therapist, a marriage and family therapist like me, and he does collaborative divorce, which is collaborative, and basically the lawyers sign a contract that says that if we end up going to court, I have to step down. I have to fire myself. I have failed you as your lawyer if I can't help everyone work this out amicably. And so it incentivizes the situation for the lawyers to try to be nice and work things out. Because the way that the system works is that when you hire a lawyer, it's the lawyer's job to advocate for you. And so whatever you think you want, the lawyer is supposed to advocate for that, right? Whether or not the lawyer thinks it's a good idea or not. Now, not every divorce lawyer is the same, but it's kind of in the lawyer's interest to let you have weird thoughts as you go through a divorce, because that means more fighting, which means more money for the lawyer. And so say you're like, you know what, I want 90% of the money, I want 90% custody of the kids, I want this, I want that. Well, it's one ethical practice for the lawyer to be like, okay, well, that's what you want. I'm going to fight for that. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there, which might mean attacking the other person's parenting skills. Just watch Marriage Story, the movie with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, for at least one depiction of that. And so the lawyer, not only it's their job to advocate for you, but it's also financially in their interest to escalate up the ladder. I mean, a divorce per couple can cost like $50,000, $100,000, even for couples that they don't even have that kind of money. Because if they don't spend that money, they're going to lose everything because the other person has a lawyer that is fighting in that way. And what can sometimes happen is as you're talking to your lawyer, and this is depicted in Marriage Story, as you're talking to your lawyer, the lawyer is going to tell you you're right. It's like, yes, you deserve that, because they want to be a good service provider. They want to be validating. They would be like, yes, you deserve full custody. That your ex-partner sounds crazy. You deserve, because you want to advocate. When you hire a lawyer, you want them to be on your side. For example, if you were to be sued or if you were indicted on a crime of some kind, you don't want your lawyer to be like wishy-washy. You want them to fight for you. You want them to believe you. And so when you apply that system to a divorce, all you get is problems. And research shows this, that when you head into that, if a couple will start with a little bit of disagreement. Maybe one parent's like, well, I kind of want 60-40 of the kids, 50-50 on the financial, that's fine. They go into that system, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes what happens is the couple will get more and more agitated. The lawyers start to do their thing. The lawyers validate the position. The people get more and more hurt, more and more upset. And by the end of the process, they hate each other. They can't stand each other anymore. They have, implicated the person to be abusive to the kids and that they're a drug addict and all these kinds of things, all because they're trying to win their argument. And, when you're that upset and that triggered as you're going through a divorce, which is crazy time anyway, because it's very hurtful and a lot of grief as people go through divorce. There's just a lot of bad things that happen from that, and so you're gonna see things through that lens of hurt and pain. You're gonna by the end of the process, hey, and at the end of that process, after $100,000 people spending on lawyers and court time and everything, it's still 50-50 financial and 60-40 custody of the kids. So if you just could have agreed in the beginning, then you could have saved yourself all the money and the emotional turmoil that affects the couple and the kids, by the way. The kids are dragged into it. They observe. They see the fact that their parents hate each other, which has a tremendous traumatic effect on kids in most situations. And so with collaborative divorce, the lawyers agree from the beginning, we are not going to escalate this. We are not going to fight with each other. We're going to try to agree. We're going to try to collaborate. Both lawyers are going to advocate for negotiation and accommodation and compromise. Now, it can sometimes be just as expensive, by the way, but at the very least, you don't incur the emotional damage on the family as a result. Having said all that, if you can avoid lawyers altogether and you're not being screwed over, because that's one thing is sometimes if you don't get a lawyer, the more assertive person, the more arrogant, forceful person will get 90% of, the collective money and kid time and that kind of thing. And so sometimes you need a lawyer for that more passive person to know their rights. But if you can work it out without lawyers, and neither person is getting screwed, then that is by far the best situation, right? You hire some sort of legal expert to help you with the paperwork and that sort of thing. And you work out your differences and you make compromises. You might not get everything you want, but it didn't destroy your relationship. It didn't destroy your working relationship for the kids. Didn't cost you $100,000 and was a lot faster. So the fact that Darcy is like, you need a lawyer is, not necessarily true. It could be, we'd have to know his situation, but if they're divorcing amicably, then why would you want a lawyer involved in that? Why would you need a lawyer involved in that? Now, sometimes what I will recommend is as you're heading into, because I've worked with a lot of people with this, both couples and individuals, is as you're heading into the final stages of the amicable divorce, sometimes it's good for both person to consult with a lawyer just for a couple hours and just be like, so this is the deal. This is the deal that I worked out with my soon-to-be ex. Does this sound reasonable to you? And by the way, lawyer, I don't need you to rack up charges. I just want your sort of dry opinion about the deal that we struck here. Am I getting screwed? And just to get a little bit of outside advice. But you could also go to a financial person or a divorce specialist, a couples therapist, and they might be able to help you. It doesn't necessarily need to be a lawyer. But, honestly, sometimes that's not necessary. If you feel like, look, we're going to split it 50-50, joint custody and 50-50 of the assets. We're going to sell the house and split the equity. Each of us are going to take a car. And there's retirement that I have in my account. And so we're in Washington State where you split those kinds of things. And so he's going to get half of my retirement and I'll take the other half. It sucks, but what are you going to do? And we'll be able to split and move forward in life, So it's a beautiful thing when that happens. And it avoids so much, again, mainly emotional turmoil for the sake of your relationship and the kids, but you also avoid a lot of financial trouble as well. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. I hope everyone out there is doing okay. When we watch these stressful shows, sometimes we need to relax our muscles and take a deep breath and remind ourselves that we're doing okay and, hug your animals or your people and to, ground yourself. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.